Happy June 26th. It is PFT PM. I'm sorry, I didn't do it on Tuesday. I wanted to. The spirit was willing, but there was just no way to do it. We had meetings in Atlanta in connection with Football Night in America. They ended around 1:30. It was straight to the airport, fly home. I didn't get home from the Pittsburgh International Airport until roughly 7 o'clock, and I was shot at that point. And by then, it was too late to really do anything. So we do it today. No days off except when we take days off. And yesterday really wasn't a day off. It was a different kind of work for me. So we're still hashtag no days off. By the way, today I was back in Pittsburgh, had my annual physical, and important heart update beyond the fact that I still continue to have one. The score that I got for the test I had last week, the CT calcium scoring scan, where they do basically an x-ray of your heart and they look inside the arteries and they try to determine whether and to what extent there's any calcification. And I'm 59. I expected some. The number can be as high technically as infinity. Ideally, you want to be under 1,000. If you're at 1,000, you got a problem. You want to be under 100, I think, to feel confident that you're not going to have a heart attack. My score was, and maybe it's because I really don't have a heart, I'm not sure, 0.0. Yes, Mr. Blutarski, 0.0. I couldn't believe it. I saw the report, every artery, everything clean as a whistle. There's nothing. I have nothing. I eat pizza all the time. I could eat pizza every meal. I eat steak more than I should. So I kind of lit up when my doctor told me, it's like, hell, I'm going to do whatever I want now. He's like, whoa, no. Just keep doing whatever you've been doing. Damn it. I thought I was going to be able to go. And really, I mean, how clogged can it get? If it's completely clean now, how clogged can it get before I die anyway? So I'm working that out. It might be time to stop riding the bike an hour a day for 27 miles for that hour. It might be time to eat more cheese and eat more pizza and eat more steak and drink more booze. Probably not. I'm going to keep doing what I do. I enjoy the workout once a day. It keeps me lean so I fit into my suits, but I also just like it. It's part of my routine. It keeps me sane too. It's just part of the whole balance, and you feel like you accomplish something, sweat like a pig when I'm done. I do need to hydrate more. That is a given. The kidney stone that I had, and I think what happened the day that I thought I was having a heart attack, I think what happened was I had electrolyte imbalance from the colonoscopy from a week earlier, and that was causing this PVC, this fluttering feeling that I had in my chest, because I haven't had it for weeks now. So sucks for you out there who love to hate. Although, who would you hate if I wasn't here? You don't want me to drop dead. You might want me to drop dead, but you really don't want me to literally drop dead. Although some of you might, but it's not going to happen, at least not due to anything wrong with my ticker. And by the way, I really do appreciate the emails I get, and I've been trying during the hiatus to answer more of them. I read all of them, even the ones that I look at and say, why? And I respond to many of them. One person in particular wanted to quibble with me over whether or not I was properly reading the screen on my Sports Art C52U gym quality bike that I use every single day when I say that I go 27 miles an hour and I ride it for an hour. I eventually took a picture as I was pulling into the station at the 1 hour mark at 27 miles and sent it to the guy. And he's like, well, I'm not really sure that that's the right. Trust me, it's 20. I appreciate that you care. I said, I'm flattered that you really care enough to keep going back and forth on this. It's 27 miles. I do it in an hour. It's not the same as riding a bike 27 miles per hour on the road. Okay. Stationary bike is a different experience than what it takes to get the wheels moving on a real bike, up and down hills and wind resistance and all that stuff. I put it on level 5 out of 12. I go 27 miles in an hour, and I really do appreciate someone caring enough to try to prove me wrong about the bike I've had for 10 years and that I ride every single day, and I know how fast I'm going. All right. Also like the input that we got on the power rankings this week. It was entertaining. Mission accomplished. Look, we're here. I'm never going to lie to you about what we do. We want you to read our shit. So late June, slow time, perfect time to do pre-training camp power rankings and prioritize the teams 1 through 32. Yeah, it may pop the bubble a little bit on the folks who are deluding themselves into thinking that their team actually has a chance this year, and their team might have a chance. But a snapshot as of right now, that's what I said on Monday. It's a snapshot, 1 through 32, and they all can't be tied for 10th. It can't be 1 through 9, and then 22 teams or 23, as the case may be, tied for number 10. You've got to have a 32, you've got to have a 31, you've got to have a 30, and all the way up the chain. A lot of Jets fans were upset that I put them at 25. Well, what have they done to merit anything higher than that? What have they done? Anything? No playoffs since 2010. Last year, they built up a ton of hope, and it all popped, literally, 4 plays into the season. You should be glad. Don't get mad at me. Be glad the bar is low. Be glad that maybe some of the players, if they give a shit, and they shouldn't, have something they can get antsy about, get upset about, call me out, call me Mike Florist, whatever it takes. But somebody had to be 25, and I put a lot of thought into it. No, I didn't. I just kind of sat down and did a visceral gut reaction 1 through 32. And I always go with my first gut reaction. When you think too much, that's when you screw it all up. And it's all subjective. And it's not a prediction of how the season's going to go. But I think based upon what we've seen from the Jets, and I think the dysfunction, frankly, goes all the way to the top of the organization. And we've seen some dysfunctional things recently. The way they handled Aaron Rodgers not showing up for mandatory minicamp, the fact that he wasn't there, and the fact that they committed a ridiculous unforced error. Just excuse the absence. Just excuse it. So everyone on there is in the spot they're in, and it will change. And there will be teams we didn't expect to do well. I probably did this last year, and the Texans were probably really low, and no one would have had them high. There's an opportunity for every team to do better than expected or worse than expected. So that's where the Jets are. And I'm sorry, Cardinals fans, somebody had to be 31. I'm sorry, Commanders fans, somebody had to be 29. It really doesn't upset me, though, because it speaks to the passion that you have for your teams, and I respect that. And I'm here to cater to that. I want you to want to get information about your favorite team and the rest of the NFL. You need to care in order to do it. If you didn't care, you wouldn't be coming to ProFootballTalk.com. You wouldn't be watching PFT Live. You wouldn't be listening to or watching the PFT PM podcast. So I appreciate very much the passion. I'm not going to pander to you because of it. I'm sorry. I'm just not going to do that. I could do the every team is great and every team is awesome and wear a different team's jersey every day and act like I'm a lifelong fan of whatever team happens to be hot like others do on other shows, on other networks. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give it to you real. And hey, if the Jets are good this year, I'll say, damn, I didn't see that coming. Just like last year when the Texans were good, I said, damn, I didn't see that coming. That's part of the fun. Things we don't see coming happen. Good teams that we expected to be good aren't. Sometimes bad teams that we expected to be bad aren't. It's part of the fun. When you start playing those games, 272, 17 games per team. Just when I get used to the change from 256 to 272, now we're going to have to start saying 288, 288 when they go to 18. Got to get ready for that. All right. Don't have to get ready for the Jaguars moving to London. Now, this is fascinating to me. And this takes me back a decade. I was saying, hey, St. Louis, you better get ready because your team's moving. Your team's moving to LA. General reaction, you don't know what you're talking about. General reaction, you're rooting for them to move to LA. Why do you hate St. Louis? Why are you saying these things? Well, you know why I was saying it? Because it was going to happen. And it did. It was wrong. The NFL lied. The Rams lied. They got St. Louis to spend the time and the money necessary to put together an offer that they were never going to accept. Stan Kroenke was hell-bent on taking the team to LA, building that $6 billion complex, and making a lot more money there. I saw it coming. And in Jacksonville, what would have happened without the Jacksonville City Council approving the deal that was struck between the Jaguars and Mayor Donna Deegan, the team would have moved to London, period. And that doesn't make me hate Jacksonville. It doesn't make me love London, although I do love London. It is just a statement of this is what will happen. And your team is going to move if Jacksonville doesn't give Shad Khan what he wants. I don't care if they stay. I don't care if they go. It's not like they're going to be contracted from the league. They're still going to exist. They're already playing one home game a year in London. In 2027, they're going to have the ability under this deal to play up to 3 home games in London. They've been playing a road game in London. They have a foothold in London. It was obvious if any team was moving to London, it was going to be the Jaguars. It doesn't make me hate Jacksonville. It makes me someone who has eyes, ears, and a brain and a mouth with which to articulate the things that were obvious. And look, I'm on your side, folks, as it relates to the next step in this process, because this really says a lot to me about how the NFL does business. The mayor and the Jaguars struck a deal. City Council approved it last night. That should be the end of it, right? Should be the end of it. Shad Khan, owner of the Jaguars, has a deal with Jacksonville through the mayor, as approved by the City Council, to do roughly a 50-50 public-private split to renovate Everbank Stadium. That should be the end of it. But no. Club oligarch has to approve this. So Shad Khan's going to have to go to his partners, hat in hand, and make the case for why at least 24 of them, I assume that it's the supermajority of 24, not a simple majority, will say, you can go ahead and do this deal. Think of how wrong that is. And I understand that when you belong to a league, you surrender certain rights. But we've been talking a lot about antitrust and collusion. What says collusion and antitrust more than 31 business owners who have no ties to your business, telling you how to run your business, telling you, sorry, we're not going to let you do that deal with Jacksonville. Sorry, we're going to send you back. We're going to send you back for more because we don't like it. Reminds me of the time I got sent back to the barber to get more hair cut off of me because I didn't get enough hair cut off. I had to make the walk of shame. Actually, it was the bike ride of shame back to the barber to get more hair cut off. So the league has the power, in theory, to send Shad Khan back to get a better haircut or to give a better haircut to Jacksonville. And I just think that's wrong. And see, they don't want to set a bad precedent because what will happen now is the next time one of these multi-billionaires who doesn't want to spend his or her own money for stadium construction or renovation is trying to get taxpayer money and say, oh, well, how about 50-50? It was good for Jacksonville. It should be good for you. I hope like hell they don't. Well, pardon me. See, I'm constantly fighting this battle between normal and chaos. The chaos side of me wants the NFL to tell Shad Khan to go back to the table and get a better deal because that is chaos. And chaos is good for business. It would be wrong if it happens. And the folks in Jacksonville should be livid if it happens. And I got your back, Jacksonville, if the NFL tries to pull that. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, you might say. I'm not saying it. You're saying it because you have me regarded as the enemy. I won't be the enemy. You won't be able to call me the enemy if the NFL tries to prevent this deal from happening, because if the deal doesn't happen, he'll move the team to London. And I could see some of the owners saying, well, you know, Shad, you had plenty of leverage here. You would have moved to London. You really let those folks off the hook easily. You really didn't drive a very hard bargain. Maybe you should go back and drive a harder bargain. It still could happen. It's not done until the league approves it. So we'll see what happens. Now, what I also think will happen, and this is the other side of the coin, if the league approves this deal and the Jaguars stay put, I don't think anybody's moving to London. And I'm not sure anybody ever was. I was told several years ago that if Han really wanted to move the Jaguars there, the league would let him. Who knows if that would have ultimately gotten enough votes to become a thing. I don't think anybody moves. I think that the London experience is exactly what I said it would be years ago. It's the little boxes of cereal that came 8 in a pack, shrink wrapped together, little Sugar Pops, little Lucky Charms. Those were probably 2 different competing brands. I can't remember, but it was 8, and you get a little of this, and you get a little of that. And that's what you're going to get in London. You're going to get different teams, different cereals. And hey, that's not bad because there's a chance you get a bad team. I don't want to have bad team play every week. We get to see different teams all the time. It's moving in that direction, and I think that's what it's ultimately going to be. And it'll be a full home schedule, 8 games every year in England, up to 8. They'll throw other European destinations in as well. I think eventually what they're going to have is every team playing at least one international game every season. I feel like that's inevitable. And that gets London the thing that I've been saying for years it's going to have. The shrink wrap collection of small cereal boxes with no team that ever moves. They muse about the possibility of a European division. The commissioner talked about that. But those are always things that just happen to get dusted off when they're in the mode of playing the games in London and Germany. Because what does that do? That generates more interest. Oh, they might have a team here someday. Maybe we should pay attention to this. Oh, they might play a Super Bowl here. You only hear about that during those fairly narrow weeks of the year when the NFL is getting ready to play games in London. We heard about London Super Bowl a few weeks ago because the mayor of London was talking about all the other international events he wants to bring to town, and he mentioned the Super Bowl. But I feel like the NFL knows what it's doing. It dangles just enough of a carrot to try to get more interest from London and get better placement in the newspaper, better placement in the TV broadcast, because even though they fill the stadiums, it still hasn't moved the needle. I had an executive from one of the teams say to me last year, it wasn't a team that played in London last year, I don't think. Maybe it was. I don't know. I can't remember who played in London last year, frankly. But the question was, how long are they going to keep doing this? Because it really isn't resonating in London the way that they thought it would. I know the stadium's full, but it's not taking over. It's not creating a groundswell. It's not getting the kind of media coverage that they had hoped for, that is potentially going to cause the sport to become more and more and more popular. Still money to be made, but it hasn't really infected the UK the way that they had hoped. Now, we've got plenty of loyal viewers who watch PFT Live on Sky Sports Action in the offseason, at Sky Sports NFL during the season, and they love it. And they can't get enough of it. And one of the reasons they watch our show religiously is because they want more coverage. They don't get more coverage. The NFL is hoping it gets to the point where there is more coverage than just a random show here or there that talks about the National Football League. So, bottom line, I'll be stunned if a team moves to London anytime soon. Stunned. And throw on top of it all the challenges logistically. I think the commissioner touched on this when he was on with Pat McAfee the Friday of draft week. I've always been concerned that whatever they put in place to try to even out the competitive disadvantages of being in a different country on the other side of an ocean, if that team becomes good, it's going to be like, well, maybe we made it too easy for them. Maybe we need to make it less easy. Maybe we shouldn't give them that much more salary cap space. Maybe we shouldn't give them that much more priority when it comes to drafting players. Because it's not going to be an attractive destination. Think about the usual NFL road trip. You leave Saturday and you're home Sunday night. The usual. I know sometimes it's longer than that. Sometimes teams will stay a whole week on the other side of the country. The road trip for the London team is going to be 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks in the U.S., practicing and living in one specific location. What do you do with your family? And then you have exchange rates and tax rates, and you're going to have guys that just don't want to move to London, period, ever. And it makes it harder to sell the idea of a draft where if you've never left the country, all of a sudden you've been drafted by the team that plays in London. I don't see it happening. Do not see it happening. Something I didn't see coming. Good God. I was talking to Jack Collinsworth yesterday as the meetings were breaking up, and he mentioned something about a tweet that said Antonio Pierce's wife filed for bankruptcy and he's on the hook for $28 million. And I made a mental note to look at it when I got home, and I forgot. And I thought of it right before bedtime. And I found the item from Tashawn Reed of The Athletic. And this is weird to me because it's his wife, Jocelyn, that files the bankruptcy petition. But the way the article's worded, based upon the documents that Reed obtained, Antonio Pierce himself is facing judgments totaling $28 million. It looks like an investment deal in an automobile dealership, or more than one dealership, went bad. And it's $28 million in judgments, not allegations, not liens, not alleged debts or whatever, judgments. It's just a mess. I mean, think about it. You're getting ready to start your first year as an NFL head coach, and you got this $28 million liability hanging over you, where they were actually, according to the paperwork that was filed, trying to garnish his wages from Mark Davis to satisfy this debt. So, see how it plays out. There's a requirement on July 12, I believe, that certain information be provided. And I still don't know why he didn't file. Maybe they're trying to take some of the steam out of this, but this just looks troubling, and it makes you wonder, will it be? Well, it'll be a distraction. How big of a distraction will it be to the job that he's trying to do when you go all in as an NFL head coach? You're worried about them coming to repossess your car or sell off your assets, and you get different exemptions based upon which state it is, but it's just a mess. And one of the things that I think football coaches strive for, because I know as somebody who covers the NFL every single day, what I strive for is no distractions during football season. Allow me to wall myself off from the rest of the world and work on covering the sport. And if you're in the sport, same thing. Need to be able to show up and coach, need to show up and play, need to have everything in order. And then once it all slows down, that's when we'll get a physical and take care of whatever other health issue might need to be taken care of, and deal with other things that you try to get to during the slow time. But, you know, sometimes they get punted to the next year's slow time. Books I'd like to finish reading get punted. I wanted to finish that JFK book this year. I have a feeling, even though we've still got some time, plenty of time actually, I don't think I'm going to finish the JFK book. So that's what I think makes it challenging for Pierce. This isn't going to be wrapped up. This isn't going to be gone. It's not going to be over when it's time for him to go to training camp. He's going to have to figure out how to spin those two plates. He's going to have to be able to focus on his job while at the same time manage whatever needs to be done from time to time as it relates to this $28 million in judgments and how it's processing through bankruptcy and what efforts are being made to try to collect the money. And he's going to have to figure out how to compartmentalize the two things and focus as much as he can on football and do what he has to do when he has to do it as it relates to the other thing. And hey, I'm sure plenty of coaches and players have had to do that. You've got to find a way to keep both things moving as you progress through football season. All right, we're going to progress through some questions today. Need to find the gift that I used, the very fitting for today's purposes gift from the movie Fletch when he got a prostate exam, because, oh yes, I got one. And, you know, there's a school of thought in the urology community, or urological community as the case may be, that and I say that as I'm preparing to do a prostate exam. There's a school of thought that it's really not reliable, and that between the PSA test and symptoms, that's how they diagnose it. PSA test and symptoms. If you're having the symptoms, then okay, we'll take a closer look. But the finger test, I think that if they notice something with the finger test, you've probably got a pretty advanced case of it where you would have had symptoms by now and your PSA test would have been out of whack by now. That if I have to detect it that way, there's already other ways to detect it. So I think that's why they're moving away from it. But it's still for some doctors, just to be safe and just to be certain and just to be sure, that's what they do. It's an unpleasant 5 to 7 seconds once every year, and it's over before you know it. Okay. PFT PM policy. How did the U.S. legal industry become so big with roughly 70% of the world's lawyers based in the U.S.? Was it ever meant to be this big and profitable? Is it because most politicians and nearly all judges are ex-lawyers, motivating them to increase billable hours? Look, I don't know. I think the nation became more litigious in the 80s thanks to Judge Wapner and Doug Llewellyn. I really do. And Rusty. Can't forget Rusty the bailiff. I think people became more willing. Remember that tagline, don't take the law into your own hands, take them to court? There was an explosion in the 80s of litigation. And the civil justice system, it's called civil for one very simple reason. It is a civil means to bring your grievances against your fellow man. So you don't show up at their house with a shotgun, or you don't, let the air out of their tires, or you don't throw eggs at their house, or whatever revenge you would get beyond the confines of the justice system. That's why it's there. I don't know anything about the statistic that 70% of the country, or the world's, lawyers live in this country. But, the market controls which of those lawyers have work and which ones don't, which ones are employed by firms that service companies and other institutional clients, which ones work for themselves and have enough work to keep them busy. I worked in both capacities. I worked for 2 different firms that were large and that had plenty of institutional clients, and you do their work. And then starting in 2000, I worked on my own, and that was serendipitous because that also opened the doorway for me to get into this business, because it gave me time to do other things. Because when you work at a firm, your only commodity is your time. If you're not working, if you're not grinding, if you're not billing hours, you have no value, because the only value you have is the number of hours you can legitimately bill to whatever smattering of cases have been assigned to you. So any time you'd spend working on anything else is taking away from the time you could be spending billing more hours. And that's your currency. And that's how you become partner. And that's how once you're a partner, a lot of it is which client relationships do you control? Because if you would leave, would you take that big client or this big client or this other big client with you? So there's power and there's money in being the person. It's kind of a pyramid scheme, really. A big law firm is a pyramid scheme where you've got the small cluster of senior partners who have the client relationships, and then you've got the lower level lawyers who do all the work, and you can't make all of them partner. A certain number of them make it, a certain number of them don't, but you need to have basically drones grinding away on these files in these fairly large pieces of litigation, and the partner who has the keys to the relationship, and all that money kind of flows up onto his or her name. That's how you get paid a lot of money in a law firm. So anyway, my point is the market works all that out. And, there may be a lot of lawyers, but how many of them are actually working? That depends on who's capable, who's not capable, who's capable of convincing people they are capable, even if they're not. But it seems like there's always plenty of legal work. They used to say 1 lawyer in town goes hungry and 2 lawyers in town live like kings. And that's a side of it too. There would always be this weird animosity and resentment between plaintiffs' lawyers and defense lawyers. And a lot of it was I think the defense lawyers at some level resented the fact that the plaintiffs got their money without having to put in the time, that you get a percentage, a contingency fee. And they don't realize, well, yeah, there's cases you take that you lose also, and you get nothing for the time you put in. But you shouldn't hate each other, because without the plaintiffs' lawyers who are representing individuals who pursue their cases in court, the defense lawyers don't have any work to do. There was a push 20, 25 years ago here in West Virginia, because I think West Virginia became a test case for a lot of concepts that are antithetical to individuals getting justice. And, the West Virginia judicial hellhole wasn't any worse than any other state, but I think they saw an opening to make it work here. And there was a big push to limit medical malpractice liability. And it was being led by the lawyers who represent the doctors and the hospitals who would get sued. It's like, okay, fine. You get what you want. you know what's going to happen? You're not going to have any work to do. Mission accomplished. We have solved the medical malpractice crisis. There is no longer an excess of lawsuits against doctors and hospitals, and now all those lawyers that did that work have to go find something else to do with their time. Anyway, on to the next one. Bill McNeil, when are the Jaguars moving to London again? When, Mike? When? Hey, Bill McNeil, go back and listen to what I said earlier. I really don't give a shit if they move or stay. My point is, if they didn't get what they wanted, they were leaving, period. And if they would have put that measure that got approved last night by City Council on a ballot, it would have lost. That's the way it works now. That's the big thing that I still can't reconcile. How do the elected officials do deals that their constituents would not approve? But that's what happened in Jacksonville. That's what happened in Charlotte. That happened in Minnesota 13 years ago. It's happened in a lot of places because you put these things on a ballot and they're going to fail. At what point will the elected officials, not officials, but officials, be accountable at the ballot box? At some level, we need to worry about that. If we keep doing these deals that our voters would say no way in hell to, at what point does that become a vulnerability when we go back and try to get reelected? All right. I saw a couple here earlier. I addressed and this is Manuel Villa's question, a possible all-European division. Would that mean adding 4 teams at once, or would that have to happen gradually? I just don't think it's going to happen. Now, if there's ever going to be 1 team in London, I think there'll be 2. Just like Al Michaels said this years before the NFL returned to LA. If there's going to be 1, there's going to be 2. And it especially makes sense to have 2 in London. You've got a natural rival there. They play each other twice a year. No travel for those games at least. And if you could do like a team in France and a team in Germany, or 2 teams in Germany, I think it would make sense. I think the first challenge is to get to 1. And I don't know that 1 is ever going to happen. But if there would be 1 in London, there would be 2. Secretariat, I still don't understand how the judge in the Sunday ticket trial can rule for the NFL if the jury rules against the league. What's the point of having a jury? That's a great question. And here's your continuing legal education or brand new legal education, as the case may be, for today. The judge has the power to conclude that there's no issue that a jury verdict is necessary for. Juries are there to resolve factual disputes. Who ran the red light? Who's telling the truth when someone claims they were fired in retaliation for complaining about safety in the workplace? The company says it was because the person was late 3 times a week. The person says it was because I made these complaints. Jury's got to sort all that out if there's enough evidence to support a finding that the company's lying. That's the key. You need to have enough evidence that's been submitted to support a verdict on the questions as framed by the judge. So if the judge ultimately looks at it and says, on these issues, as presented by this case, these legal issues, as reflected in the applicable law, there's not enough evidence to support a jury verdict, case is over. And I think it's very concerning if you're the plaintiffs that the judge ruled against the plaintiff's request for motion or for judgment as a matter of law, saying you should say we've won the case and no reasonable jury could find otherwise. The judge denied that motion. The judge hasn't ruled on the NFL's motion. The judge is going to rule on the NFL's motion after the jury verdict. And I think the judge wants to see what the jury does. If the jury finds for the NFL, you don't have to do anything. The jury finds for the plaintiffs, the judge can still find for the NFL. So get ready for a potentially big verdict that we then find out the judge is taking away. Because the judge sounded off last week, not in the presence of the jury, but in open court, and reporters were there to hear it, about the weakness of the plaintiff's case, the way the plaintiff's lawyers have presented it. They overcomplicated it. And see, that's the one point that I think we need to keep in mind. Even if the NFL wins this thing by the judge entering judgment as a matter of law in the NFL's favor, the league needs to worry, and also if they would win by a jury verdict, the league needs to worry that there'll be more antitrust cases that are brought in different jurisdictions or with a cleaner argument. Basically, you take the failures of this case and you use that as the bizarro blueprint for what not to do and what you should do with the next case. So, the win for all of us might be that the NFL views this as a shot across the bow if it wins and says, we better revisit how we do Sunday Ticket. We better ask ourselves, should we be telling the Sunday Ticket provider that they need to charge $389, $449, whatever it may be, a high enough price so people will say, we'll just watch, even though we'd rather watch the out-of-market games, we're not going to pay that money. We'll just watch whatever games are on CBS or Fox in our local market as part of our current cable, satellite, internet package. That's what it's all about. So maybe the NFL will win, but consumers will win because the NFL will fear the next. There may be an attitude too. Fine, bring it on. Let's go. We won this one. We'll win the next one. We'll win the next one. But it's rare for the NFL to get this close to a reckoning. Remember the USFL trial 38 years ago this summer? They lost, but the verdict was $1. That's the other thing that could happen. It could be the plaintiffs win, but the damages aren't anywhere close to what they want. They can find that the NFL was wrong, but they cannot, if they choose to, buy in to the damages evidence that the plaintiffs put on. So, hey, yeah, the NFL did you wrong, but you really didn't convince us of the money that you lost as a result of what went down. All right, let's see what else we have here. I have radio coming up in a few minutes. So I'm looking for one more. I'm going to skip over some of these. Some of these are funny. I think that's all for today. Wait, how about this? This is a good one from Manuel Villa. When you started PFT, did you know the extent to which people crave NFL news, or did that even surprise you over the years? I was talking to Jack Collinsworth about this the other night. I knew from my own experience how hard it was to get NFL news, and how, in your local market, in your newspaper, on your local TV. And I used to tune in. It was Wednesdays, Sports Center, to see what Chris Mortensen had to say, because Chris Mortensen would give you stuff from around the league. So I knew it, especially post free agency, there was a desire for up-to-the-minute information, analysis, rumors, et cetera, about the NFL that wasn't being satisfied. And like if you had Pro Football Weekly, it would show up and it'd be 5 days stale when you got the actual newspaper print copy of Pro Football Weekly. So I knew instinctively there was a market for what we do. And I set it up as I said time and again, this is one of the lessons I learned from Rock and Roll Hall of Fame recording artist Kiss. Paul Stanley explained they created the act that they would have paid money to go see. I created the destination that I would spend my time at. And it's worked. So part of it is people love the NFL and they can't get enough of them. They want to know what's going on all the time. And we appreciate the fact that you are interested enough in the NFL to even pay attention to it in June, to listen to this podcast in the slowest time of the year. We appreciate you very much. We're sorry if we upset any Jets fans or Jaguars fans or Cardinals fans or any other fans. We're just trying to give it to you straight, and we'll keep giving it to you every day during the PFT Live hiatus, around the clock at profootballtalk.com, and as many PFT PM podcasts as I can manage. Thanks again. We'll see you on Thursday. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.